All right. Welcome back to the meat of the matter. We are here today with our guest, Selina Fox. Mark and I, Peter is on vacation. And I think we're going to get into some stuff today that's very important. And Selina's story is important. And I'm just going to throw it to you, Selina. Welcome to the show. And thanks for being here.
Oh, of
And
course.
and let us know. And just if you want to start with what we kind of came here for today and your story.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you guys so much for having me today. So to dive in right to the thick of it, my name's Selina, and in 2017, I was diagnosed with stage 3 thyroid cancer. I had a 4.3 centimeter tumor growth on my right thyroid lobe. Had a biopsy done. They took 4 spots, 4 different locations in that biopsy, and all locations came back cancerous. The doctor at that point in time told me, the only options that you have are radiation, potential chemo, and or removal, full removal. And of course, with either one of those options, the only thing you have to depend on after that point is to live on a medication for the rest of your life. That part alone is a very difficult concept for me to accept because I myself, for one, I have several sensitivities, very strong sensitivities to a lot of medications that are considered standard for most people. I cannot take birth control as it causes me excessive internal bleeding. So that part alone, it's like, well, if I can't live on a synthetic hormone that is considered normal, what makes you think I'm going to be able to live on any of these other derived pharmaceuticals for the rest of my life and be okay? They couldn't give me an answer for that, obviously, because it's like, well, unless we put you on it, we won't know. And at the time, they were very pushing towards making sure that I was going to start some sort of process through their recommendation of radiation or removal. I left the doctor's office and I decided to refuse all treatments that were suggested. And the reason being is my big stance. We learn in elementary school about cellular regeneration. I mean, we are taught at a very young age, and it's literally elementary, right? You get a scrape, you get a cut, you get a sickness, you get any kind of infection, and your body is designed to heal and repair itself. We are literally taught this in 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th grade. I mean, I don't know how the schooling system accounts stages across the world, but here in the US, like, it is literally elementary school education. And the idea that we obtain this damage inside of our body that causes us to produce cancerous cells, it just seemed absolutely illogical to me that we are not able to repair that based off of just a standard understanding, common sense knowledge. Our cells are designed to repair and heal. Our body wants to heal itself. Why would it not want to heal this? And I started asking a lot of questions about, well, what causes cancer cells? What causes, the degrading of a cell becoming going from a healthy cell to a damaged cell? And even as a licensed medical esthetician, one of the things we understand about the skin and renewal process is one like free radicals, right? Well, if we add in all of these things to help the cell to rebalance, its electrons, the cell then goes from a damaged cell to a healthy cell. So all of these different educations, it's pretty common sense knowledge that we can repair, we can heal, our body wants to. What is the disillusion is that from a medical standpoint, that we can only do this through medications or through extreme damage to ourselves. And I know from different family members that have been through this and have gone through extreme bouts of chemo and radiation. And my aunt, who also had thyroid cancer, who she did the whole radiation, and she living on a medication forever, that they don't really get better. They end up with different ailments. And that's because the damage also damages other systems in the body. I'm no doctor by any means, so it's not like, I can attest for all of the different researches and stuff like that. But I do know what I found for myself and what I researched myself was I had to have been doing something to my body to cause the cells to become damaged and to a point that my body could no longer regulate and started reproducing the damaged cells. So the mitosis, instead of choosing healthier cells, was not capable because I was not giving it whatever it needed to do so. Just sort of seems common sense. When you start going into that process, you start pretty much ending into the rabbit hole of food and, processed foods specifically. And you end up finding out about seed oils and you go, okay, if my hormones, which you end up learning as far as for thyroid, are the entire functioning house as to the thyroid choosing to function or not. And you go, okay, well, if my hormones are disrupted and my entire system that helps to contain this symbiosis in our bodies is off balance. Okay, what causes that? Well, okay, I no longer need to eat Groicha's plants because those, destroy thyroid function. Well, okay, if Groicha's plants destroy your thyroid function, I no longer need to eat those. And I started to eliminate very simple things. I didn't come to a carnivore diet directly. I sort of slowly started educating myself, and I leaned into that as the time went on. I removed Groicha's vegetables. I removed all synthetic and processed foods. I did hyper supplement in the beginning of my journey because I started doing blood work and I was paying for that out of pocket to have labs do them so that I could look at it, because one, my doctors wouldn't. Two, after that point, it was like, I have to figure this out on my own because the only doctor I have here, if I'm refusing his treatment, he pretty much was non-compliant with anything I asked. And based because he wouldn't suggest it. So if he wouldn't suggest it, that means, insurance isn't going to help you. It's not recommended. You have to figure this out on your own. And so I started learning how to read my blood work. I started learning, okay, what does this mean? And what are these variances? And what does this affect in my body? So if this is really low, what causes this? And I basically became a research machine. My husband would tell you that I spent anywhere between 5 to 6 hours a day trying to figure out my health, trying to figure out what was going on. And I jumped on the hyper supplementation, and I cannot say it didn't help me. It did. But when I started coming to the realization of learning that, oh my gosh, if I eat this and it causes a deficiency or a lack of absorption of this product, like whether it's zinc or, I don't know, magnesium or any of those things, calcium, and I'm going, okay, I'm chasing this circus wheel of, oh, I ate this today, now I need to hyper supplement with this because this blocks the absorption of that, so I need to add that back in. And you start to look at, okay, what food doesn't do that to our body? Well, it's meats and fats. Those are the only things that, when eaten, are 100% bioavailable to our body to absorb, that doesn't also deplete us of something else that is vital. It kind of just was like a ding, ding, ding. I didn't have to hear a doctor tell me this. I didn't have to go through any of that. I just had to go, why am I running this circus treadmill over here of, supplementation for my body when I can just eat this and nothing else is is being taken away from my own system. And so I pretty much ended up on like a keto diet, as I called it, but it was very, very, very heavily leaned towards an animal-based carnivore, more so than I realized at the time. Because once you remove growth plants, there's not a whole lot of plant material left to be able to eat. You end up with some berries and some honey sometimes, not much else. And I stayed on that for about 7 years. Now, like I said, in 2017, I was diagnosed. I also, at that point in time, I was 272 pounds. I'm only 5'4", so that made me a rather significantly hefty little lady walking around. And during that time of doing all of that, I lost over 112 pounds. And my husband came to a point where he was like, I know you don't really like the medical system. And I said, yeah, I know. He said, but I think it's time that we just have you checked out, just so we know, just so we know you're doing okay. Because once I started that system of eliminating all of the BS out of my food and my life, and mind you, at that time, I unconsciously was also participating in the circadian system. I wasn't educated on it, but when I started to feel better after about the first like 6 to 8 months, I was already starting to get some of my energy back, because I was so lethargic before that when I tell you, I literally felt like I was dragging a lifeless body around. Like it took everything in me to do anything for years. And when I started getting a little bit of that energy back, he was like, come on, let's go to the beach. Let's go to the beach. And we went to the beach, and every morning we usually would get there by about anywhere between 5:30 to 7 a.m. And so I was out there absorbing all that beautiful sunrise like every morning for about a year. And I didn't realize until later on how much that was also, in addition to what I had already started shifting. So I do know that plays a big factor as well. But by 2021, so mind you, I was diagnosed in 2017. In 2021, I felt absolutely phenomenal. I had zero inflammation. I had lost over 112 pounds. I had more energy than I had seen in probably 12 years at that point, because obviously I didn't just suddenly wake up with cancer. There was a process that led me to that was ignored before, right? And he goes, okay, it's time. And mind you, in addition to all of this, I do have an older son who, as of this year, will be 18. But at the time, in 2021, I believe he was 14, going to be turning 15, or I think he was 14 that year, I believe. I had not had any more children. I had not been able to have any more children. In fact, in May of 2021, I was told that I would not be able to ever have any more children, because my system, was just not producing those wonderful hormones that we need. But I was still doing like amazing. So 2021, I go in and I still did have the tumor growth. But when I had sent off for the labs, my everything was in balance except for my thyroglobulins. Those were still sort of off. And I went to my doctor. I found a new doctor after that first one that I ended up shifting away from. And I said, look, these are my recent lab work. Here's all the ones from the years prior. She ended up also getting, of course, all of my medical charts and everything from the previous doctor. And she goes, all right, well, what do you want to do? I said, well, I'd like another biopsy for one, and then I want to decide what my next steps are. And she said, okay. So we went in for biopsy in June of 2021. And all of my biopsy results came back undeterminable at that point in time. So I went from, there was absolutely zero question, these are cancer cells. We need to get you like either on the table and cut it out, or you need radiation like tomorrow, to we can't quite determine that they look a little funny, but they're not, we can't say that they're cancerous. And I talked with her at that point in time, and I said, because my thyroglobulins are still elevated, I said, I know for a fact that that's because my body is still trying to eliminate what this foreign object is, right? Like I'm conscious of that. I said, and I think that's the part that's not allowing me to kind of go that next step forward. And she discussed with me that she said, you are able to function off of 1/2 of your thyroid fully. She said, it's possible. And I decided at that point, I said, okay. I said, well, seeing as, I know that I've come to a point that you can't tell me that it's cancer, but I've still got this going on. I decided to have at that point a hemithyroidectomy. So I did have the right half of my thyroid removed. When they biopsied the entire right lobe, it was determined absolutely non-cancerous. They could not find a cancer cell, which is a blessing and an amazing standpoint for that. As of this moment, I have my left thyroid lobe, and I have had that alone since June of 2021. And 6 weeks after my surgery, I actually ended up pregnant with my youngest son. So if that doesn't tell you, that the body is so unbelievably capable of handling amazing things. And I know some people will be like, well, yeah, but you still had surgery. Yes, I did. But I also know that was my choice to take that step forward. But in the same shot, when they analyzed everything, to know that I went from, holy crap, we need you to handle this, to we couldn't find anything. And I remember my doctor telling me, she was like, I don't know what you've done, but this is amazing. This is a miracle, because I've never seen this. And I was like, well, I've explained what I've done. I've eliminated everything out of my lifestyle that was not meant to be there. And when you do that and you actually give your body what it needs to be able to support itself in healing, it will do that. We're designed to do that. And that, I know, is a scary thing for people to step forward, because there is this conversation of, well, my medical doctor told me this, and my medical doctor said that this is my only choice. And they use those phrases often. This is the only option you have. This is the only way that this can be helped. This is the only thing that you can do. And it's not because I think that there is an entirety of bad intentions from medical doctors. It's that there is a lack of understanding about, one, nutrition, two, about how our nutrition actually helps support our system. And without that actual education, knowledge, and understanding from a position of not having a bias for what is going to be the outcome of this data, you actually end up with a true cellular repair ability. Our medical system has ended up in a very, very imbalanced place. And I know it sounds like in a lot of my conversations that I am just against the medical system in every way, and I'm not, because there is a place and there is a purpose and there is a time for certain amenities that are available to us now. Like I say often, if I end up in a car accident and I've got half an engine sitting on my lap, well, I'm going to want a medical doctor to help me. I'm going to want stitches if I end up with some sort of gash or whatever. Like, there is a place for it. But the system has become so imbalanced that there is this God factor with the medical system. Whether they intend to experience that or express that to their patients or not, there is. And there's a forgetful notion that what they say to their patients, that these patients literally lay their life in their hands and in their words. and they will take whatever they read off that pamphlet to their patient. That patient is going to take that to their grave, that's what's going to help them and that's what's going to save them, without educating themselves beyond what the medical doctor suggested. Mm-hmm. The fallacy that is in our societal programming, that a medical doctor knows all, is what is disrupting us as a society, taking care of ourselves individually. In America, and I'm going to say this because it's where I'm from, we have the right to be educated or not. You can choose to walk around in complete ignorant bliss, and that's great, but also you're choosing to hand over your life to someone else to take care of. So we have the right to educate ourselves, and it's our job to educate ourselves about our bodies, about our function, about our health, about our nutrition. It's our job. That's what we need to do. We need to take that back into our hands and question, and not from a hateful place by any means, but from a self-preservation and sovereignty. People that I watch in my family and my friends, and they hand over just this like plate to the medical system of, here, just take care of it for me. Just tell me what I need to do, and I'll do it. And there's no possible way for a single doctor to be educated in every single ailment or prescription or symptom that comes across for every single thing in the body. And the way our system is set up is you go to a GP, a general practitioner, and they'll decide if you need to go to a specialist. They'll decide. And it's like, but they might not even understand the full symptomatic process, that these symptoms actually mean something very severe over here. But because it's not in the pamphlet that I read about it, I don't know about it. So I'm not necessarily going to refer you out or send you over, because according to my paperwork, according to this black and white sheet, you look okay. And that's the part where educating yourself as a point of understanding and going beyond what the medical doctor has to tell you is important, because it's not that they're there to harm you. It's just that they don't have the capability to educate themselves so innately on everything to be able to help you beyond that. Mm. There's a good place for them. There is a need for them. It's just not the same God factor that we've given them the keys to. Mm. So I don't know if there's. I'm not passionate about this at all, guys.
Wow,
that's incredible, Selina. Honestly,
yeah,
it's incredible.
And man, so brave and to take it in your own hands and learn about you. That so many people, I feel, fall, or somebody on social media or a doctor says, you don't do the research. We've always joke about this, trust the science. And it's like,
yeah,
man,
there's not enough science out there to really have an actual comprehensive process of the human body. I mean, there's not. And it's practically impossible, because you can't take a group of 1,000 human beings and go, okay, we've done this study now, and everybody has a different environment. Everybody has a different eating process. Everybody has different stressors. Everybody has a different, experience of whether or not they're regulating their fight or flight process. So it's like, how do you take all of that and go, okay, we definitely know what's going on for us? I mean, it's impossible.
Mm-hmm. Do you what I find is, when you made a good point about the GP and the specialist referral, and it's almost like, from what I've seen, especially in Canada, is it's all these specialists. I've had people that I've been helping and clients that have had 5 doctors, different doctors. It's like, and they don't even talk to each other. I mean, I don't know how it is in the US, but
it's the same.
or one will take whatever the I guess they deem the most severe problem, they'll take the lead on the rest of the thing. And not once do they talk about nutrition or lifestyle.
No, no. When I was diagnosed, there was not a single conversation about, well, what are you eating? What is it that you're doing? How are you experiencing, any kind of fitness aspect? I mean, there was nothing asked about my lifestyle at all as far as that went. And the sad part about that is, even with me specifically, was I had a healthy lifestyle. I was not a processed food, fast food junkie. I didn't hardly eat processed food. I cooked almost all of my own meals, and I did the healthy things. I mean, I juiced and I ate probably 3 salads a day, and I did that whole beautiful broccoli and rice and chicken ordeal for I don't know, 6 months. It's like I was doing the right things. I was doing the healthy things. So it's like, if he had asked my dietary lifestyle, he wouldn't have even questioned it, because that couldn't possibly be it, because you're doing what we recommend.
I was the same, Selena. I told you about this on a message a few weeks ago. Like I lost my parents there last year to cancer, and they were only in their 70s. They were very, very young, both of them. And I always said to the doctors, like, listen, I'm not a doctor, but I don't understand why you're feeding them medication and you're giving them sugar every couple of hours. And I was like, oh my God, like, and I watched these two deteriorate in front of my eyes. We were told back in November 23 that these only had 6 months to live. So we were well aware of it. And at that time, I had a good knowledge about carnivore. So I was like, okay, listen, you guys need to listen to me. We need to starve the sugar out of the body. We need to get rid of it. We need to eliminate it, and we need to take matters into our own hands. I'm not saying we're going to cure it, but what I'm saying is we can actually put this into remission, and hopefully we can keep them here for maybe another 2 years, maybe even longer. So that's what I was thinking. So in my mind, I was like, okay, we need to get rid of the alcohol. We need to get rid of the sugar. We just need to eliminate everything, and just trust me on this. So I said to my partner, I said, listen, you need to let me control this. Just let your parents just listen to me. I did everything in my power, believe me, everything in my power to say to the doctors, okay, listen, stop feeding them medication and stop putting them on a low cholesterol diet.
Right.
And let's see what happens. I was told this is no word of a lie. I was told by the doctor that I don't have a PhD. I don't have the knowledge. Don't tell me what to do. And I was told that by a nurse as well.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And to this day, that is my biggest regret, that I didn't fight these people back. My biggest regret, that I let these people go. I let them go, and I didn't fight for them.
That's a, Mark, that's a horrible position to be in, man. And I think even Selina, your back's against the wall, against the system. And what really pisses me off is the first time I heard Dr. Thomas Seyfried speak about the possibilities that cancer is a metabolic disease, that sugar is the problem. Why? I was like, holy, okay, I'm listening.
Yeah.
And yet you tell people, and I mean, obviously it's you have people that or that everybody's had this part of their lives, and you try and suggest something, and they'll ask their doctor, and the doctor said that's ridiculous. Don't listen to it.
Oh, I know. I know.
And the thing is, like, I know a few people that are going through it at the moment, and they've told me that their diet is perfect, absolutely perfect. They're saying it's not the diet, it's genetics. This just happened. It happened because my family had it. And I'm like, okay, well, hang on a second. Can you tell me what your diet looks like? And they'll tell me I'm having the oats for breakfast. I'm having the berries. I'm having the salads. I'm having the chicken. And it's like, okay, well, are you having any fat in that diet whatsoever? And she's like, no, I'm eating complex carbohydrates. So don't worry, my food is completely healthy. And it's like, oh my God, like, and I'm like, have you never heard about cholesterol? And she's like, no, my cholesterol needs to be low. And I said, are you taking any medication? Yeah, I'm on a list of medication. So like, I'm like, you're obviously not that healthy then, are you?
Right, exactly. One of the I would say like great things that my mom did. My mom was very much like a holistic type person growing up, and I was on all kinds of like Chinese herbs instead of, you don't take Advil and Tylenol because we've got a Chinese herb for that. And I'm grateful. I am grateful because the seed of possibility of something different was planted for me. And during her particular generation, what she was doing was already like way out of the left field of what was acceptable, because she was born in 64. So her generation was definitely like low fat, um, get in as many vegetables and treadmill your life away, right? And she had told me about a book that came out in the 70s, and I cannot remember the guy's name who wrote it, but it was called The Sugar Blues. And it was a whole, he broke down like the insanity of how sugar is a drug for us, how it is an addictive process. And this was in the 70s that this book was released. And I remember her telling me about it a lot when I was little. And of course, I didn't read it until after I had ended up with my diagnosis. And I was like, gosh, I remember my mom talking about this book. And because of that book, which is why I'm like, I wish I could remember his name, but because of that book, sugar was one of the first things I cut out of my diet. And it had nothing to do with anything else that I found, but just going, gosh, if I'm so addicted to this, because of what it's doing to the frontal cortex of the brain, where it's firing this insane dopamine thing for me, and then I'm crashing hard, it's like, well, I already don't need that. And it had nothing to do with my understanding about what it was feeding in the system, other than the fact that I knew my whole life, my mom would always say, whenever we got sick, you can't have any sugar. If I got a cold, if I like anything, that's the first thing she eliminated out of our diet for that week or 2 weeks. And so I was fortunate enough to kind of have this like background programming that already made me question certain aspects. So although like her process was still not, the greatest, she was vegan for, a good portion of our whole life. And, she did the whole Weight Watchers thing, but she was already teaching me to look outside of the box. She was teaching me. And so I'm always grateful for that, because without her being willing to stand against what was considered normal for her generation, I would not have had the courage to look beyond what I was just being told was the way to do it.
Mm.
And so yeah, sugar in itself, it's like after I started reading that book and I kind of educated myself, and it was like, oh yeah, I remember mom not like, I wasn't allowed to have any kind of juice. And I mean, when she took away sugar, I'm talking like we had no fruit, we had no juice, we had like any sugar, it was all gone. And realizing that it fed, the disease, it fed bacteria, it fed all those things. And I understand that from a soil perspective. Like what do we do when we're trying to correct some of the microbiome in our soil? And it's like, well, we give it sugar. Well, like it's natural sugars, but we give it sugar in order to feed certain bacteria if they have overgrown a certain aspect. What does a tree release out into its roots to send a signal that it wants certain bacteria? Well, sugar. Why? Because it's trying to kill off something else. Oh, wait, sugar feeds bacteria. It's
All bacteria, like everything,
yes,
everywhere in the universe loves sugar.
exactly. And so it's like you don't have to be a rocket scientist. You just have to be willing to look and read and educate and become consciously aware of how our system works. And we as human beings, our bodies are very symbiotic to the way Earth itself functions. It's like the Earth goes through the same process, just on an immensely grander scale that our bodies do individually.
As above, so below.
Exactly. So
Wow. I mean, it's this stuff. It's really tough because there's people out there, probably screaming at us already, saying, "Ah, come on!" And Selina, your story. This is people need to hear you. Like they need to hear this, and it's what blows my mind is actually the prevention is the same as the treatment. If you're doing, your diet and lifestyle and nutrition, it's the same thing.
Exactly.
And so many people wait till they're desperate. I talk to people when they're at their, and by then, what do you're a cog in the wheel of the medical system now to break free from, oh man, it's
and that's
tragic.
that's the frustrating part, isn't it, Tony? Like you have to wait until you're desperate. It's like, why can't you not take control of this situation right now?
Because
like
like
Selena, like Selena mentioned earlier on, it was like she took control of the situation. She was in a desperate need, but she was like, she wasn't getting the answers. They were just pushing medication onto her, and they were like, okay, well, forget about what you're doing. We know from the studies, this medication is going to change your life. You know what I mean? And that's what people are going by. They're going by, okay, you guys are the experts. You guys know what you're talking about. So even though I'm in a desperate need, I'm still gonna follow your advice because you guys are gonna look after me. You know what I mean? We only need to look at COVID. What happened during COVID? Every one of us were told we were going to be looked after properly. They left the fast. They left the takeaways open. They closed the gyms. You weren't allowed outside. You know, I mean, you can drink alcohol. It's like, holy shit. This is not good. This is not good.
Yeah.
Curious to touch back, if we can, on the whole like genetic concept about
for sure.
This being part of your, this is part of your genetic history, and because your family has this, it's just inevitable. One of the really interesting understandings that I came aware of was, yes, we might have genetic weaknesses that we could be predisposed to a possibility, right? Because, I mean, gosh, all of us in the whole world at some point are all related by now. So certain parts, they were a little bit closer together with their love than other parts. So of course, yes, we ended up with some genetic, like kind of quirks, I guess is the way I would put it. But the thing with genetic predispositions is, with all of them, a gene marker only happens if it is triggered. And the only thing that triggers gene markers is what we are ingesting and putting into our environment. So you might, yes, genetically have a gene marker that lends you towards the possibility that this could happen to you more likely, but what are you doing to your body that triggers that gene to turn on? Exactly. That's the part that people are not being educated about their genetic history, because it's the same thing, and it's understood very clearly for people that have addictive disorders. It's like there are certain predispositions in our genes that cause us to be specifically addicted to certain, items versus others. So for instance, I'm going to kind of put my husband on blast for a minute. We did a whole genetic testing for all kinds of things for both of us. And my husband has the marker specifically to be more genetically possible to be addicted to marijuana. And people can tell you, oh, you can't be addicted to marijuana. Well, it's actually a gene marker. You can go look it up. You can go research. Its addictive properties are not as prominent and damaging for most, but there is a dopamine thing that triggers in the brain. So for my husband, he knows that, well, if I ingest or if I partake, I am then adding the possible trigger to turn the addictive property in my brain, that neurofiring function. I'm about to trigger that if I participate in this action. Okay, well, I think it's something like, and do not quote me on this percentage because I can't remember it, but it was a crazy percentage of the population that has the gene marker specifically for sugar addiction.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
And it's like, Well, duh, but yet it's considered an acceptable thing. Well, we end up triggering it at such a young age because we go ahead and ingest it. We go ahead and spark that fire, that neurological fire in the synapses in the brain to go, oh, we need that. Now this trigger has been ignited. It's been turned on.
From the
And
applesauce to the mashed yams, right? Like before
exactly.
protein, we're getting that.
Exactly. And it's
Awesome.
like, it's not necessarily that because you have that potential for gene that you're definitely, without question, going to get it. It's, are you doing the things to your body to cause the trigger to be turned on? And a lot of people don't understand that about gene expression.
And you're like what you talked about before, and it's something that really struck me is quite often I see people, they don't tie it all together, everything. And when we're talking about, you're talking about, cancer, and we're talking about weight loss, but
Right.
now we're talking about gene transcription and predisposition. Bruce Lipton is like an amazing guy, another household name that everybody should realize, that programming and epigenetics. So the epigenetics, your lifestyle and your thing trigger your genes, and the programming that we're susceptible to from the
Yeah.
time we're, basically out of infancy, it's all
Yeah.
starts the process.
Exactly.
And
Exactly.
and I mean, and it's funny how the medical system's fallback is, oh, it's you, you're broken, you're sick.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's not anything that you've been doing, and it's not anything that you've been ingesting. It just happens. You just happen
Unlucky.
to be the unlucky one,
Unlucky
right?
one. Yeah.
I'm like, oh, I got that lottery ticket. Great, that's
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Everybody has to eat. So
yeah.
it's like
Yeah.
you need to, I mean.
Probably should be good at it then, right? Maybe, right? Maybe. Yeah. Who?
I think
What do
it's
carnivores know, right?
yeah. Well, it's hard to be good at eating when our entire system is set up to cause a complete uh, deregulation of our hunger signals in general. So let alone like ignoring anything else. It's our entire system is completely designed to dysregulate our hunger signals. And once your hunger signals are completely out of balance, you no longer know how to eat.
Yeah.
Whether it's
Exactly.
vegetarian, vegan, carnivore, any of it.
Yeah.
If that's already off the railroad track, you don't know how to eat because your body doesn't function properly enough to tell you.
And that's a good point too with cancer, because when people realize that it's metabolic, and you've shared your story about changing your diet and we're so inundated all the time with all this fake stuff.
Yeah.
Then they tell you that it's these carcinogens out there. But what if every cell in your body is potential cancerous? What
Right.
if every cell, and they treat all these cancers like different cancers, when
Right.
maybe the root cause of it is all the same, and nobody's, and
Right.
I've
I
heard
know.
a few stories of people that have, gotten way better outcomes. And I'm not claiming to know everything and say, oh,
Me
everybody, but
neither.
the research is there now. Like there's people out there that are helping people.
Yeah.
And, it all comes back to, we know processed food's bad, but how bad? They'll tell you you're broken when you've been eating Doritos and cupcakes and Coke for 30
Exactly.
years. And then it's, oh, you
Exactly.
unlucky. You have
Right.
insert cancer here.
Yes, exactly. My father, he's a type 2 diabetic, and he has gotten to a point where he has almost zero use of his legs. He cannot feel his feet anymore. He has had to have the last 2 surgeries he's had in the last 2 months. He's had to have I forget what it's called, but where they push CO2 through his veins
Holy cow.
in order to try to generate
Whoa.
circulation to happen. So he's had that done twice now in the last 2 months. And what kills me is I go into the like rehab centers that they have him in for rehabilitation afterwards, and I walk up and it happens to be lunchtime or it happens to be snack time, and I see puddings and jellos and biscuits and macaroni and cheese. And I'm like, this is all of the garbage he can't have. Oh, and by the way, you can have the ice cream and the cake because we're just going to pump you full of medication to correct it. Why give it to him in the first place? You are literally supposed to be helping him. And that also teaches him, which, I mean, it seems weird because we're talking about a 70-year-old man, but it teaches him, well, the doctor gave this to me, so it's okay as long as I have my medication. Well, the nurse said that this is fine. It's on the protocol sheet of what's allowed as long as I have my medication. And it's like, well, you wouldn't need the medication if you didn't eat this.
And
like,
the dietitians running the show at the hospital, right? Like
Yeah.
this is our supporting staff, right?
And I was the same. I took on a nurse there about 6 weeks ago. I told the boys this, and there was a 29-year-old that came in about 3 weeks ago, I think it was. He's a type 2 diabetic. They had to remove his leg. 29 years of age. And then after that, when he got the surgery done, here you go. Here's a bowl of carbohydrates, right? Here's a bowl of sugary stuff for you. It's like, oh my God, this is criminal. This was actually coming from her. And
yeah.
I was like, why? Like she has to work because she has to earn a living. But she's been doing carnivore. Well, she's been studying carnivore for the last 2 years, and she knows the ins and outs. And she gets very, very frustrated that she's like Joff, the guy that's on our community. And it's incredible how these people can actually work in that environment. I don't think I could ever work in that environment. I don't think that what I know now, if I was to work in that environment, I could stay there. I don't care how much money they're giving me. I just think it's absolute criminal. I think when you're 29 years of age, you're a type 2 diabetic and you've lost your leg, that's it. You've lost one of your limbs for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
Well, Mark, it comes back to my conversation, right? Like I had a conversation with my doctor. It didn't go too well because she, you're pre-diabetic. You will have diabetes probably within 5 years, maybe 10 years. There's nothing you can do about it. And I was like, what? I'm not eating sugar. And she's like, that has nothing to do with it. It's you. That was and I was like, okay, you got to be kidding me. And that just pushed me right into, and I'd been low carb for, about 6 months at that point. And I'm like,
dang it, Tony, it's all your fault.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and that's, that was only 6 years ago, and now it's just, and I learned about my blood sugar. I started poking my blood every single thing I was eating. And I'm like, the blood sugar's not going up. If the blood sugar's not going up, how can it keep going up? Right.
Exactly.
Right.
And every dietitian and every influencer will tell you that diabetes is not caused by sugar. They will say that it's all to do with fat. And when you ask them, have you ever heard of the Randall cycle? They're like, what's the Randall cycle? I've never heard of it.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh my God, how do you guys not actually know this? How can you tell me that diabetes is not caused by too much sugar in the blood? It's incredible. It's absolutely incredible.
Along that concept, I mean, they're finally starting to come out with the understanding that, like, dementia and, even schizophrenia is caused by too much sugar in the brain system.
Mm-hmm.
And it's
it degrades your nerves, all of them.
And right? It's like, well, if that's too much sugar in the brain system, and then, oh, by the way, we also are now discovering, so people are starting to discover that pretty much there's not a disorder or a disease that happens to the body that is not an abundance of sugar in that particular system, whatever the system is in the body. If your body is overconsumed with sugar and it's in your blood system and it's running through all of that, well, guess what? All of those, genetic markers that are weaker for your system, well, guess what? They all just got turned on, and now you've got Alzheimer's, or you've got diabetes, or you've got kidney disease, or you've got, like, the list goes on. And
that's a really good point, Selina, because if we look at all these diseases as individual ones, and the genetic predisposition is presenting you with this diagnosed disease, but I have a tough time believing it's not all started by the same process. I mean, I'm not saying if anybody's born with something or, you know,
Right.
there is obviously nuance there, but I mean, when you've been unaware of anything you've been putting in your body or exposed to for decades, and then you blame yourself for being broken, I don't,
Yeah.
I can't accept that. I don't, and you know what you said at the beginning, very very early, was, you know, the body's ability to heal is amazing.
That's
It
what I
just
was
has
going to
to be
say.
unleashed.
That's what I was going to say.
Exactly.
Okay, you might be able to, you might be born with something, but you still, the control is still in your hands.
Yeah,
Exactly.
Because as I said, you still have to live a life. You still have to eat. So it's like,
Mhm.
okay, what am I going to eat? Am I going to eat shit, or am I going to focus on keeping my cholesterol high?
yeah,
You know what I mean? So it's like, okay, I may be born with something. That's
Right.
fine, but you still have full control of your life. That's
yeah.
it. Nobody's telling you. Nobody's telling you what to put into your body. That's down to you.
Yeah.
You're the one that makes that decision.
And you
That's
know,
the
like,
part people give up. They
yeah.
give up the control over their own sovereignty.
And you mentioned something, Selena, about circadian rhythms. And if you don't mind, like, how do you feel about that? And because we sometimes talk about the external things about
Yeah.
the carnivore lifestyle, but
Yeah.
you know, I'm a big fan of the sun, and you know,
Yes.
getting as much possible vitamin D to my cholesterol soaked body as possible. You know,
Yes.
and it seems I don't have I don't burn in the sun anymore, so that's weird. You know,
Oh, that
people
is
think,
weird.
oh, it's just what? It's an age thing. You know, I'm supposed to be getting fatter, slower, sicker, and you know, my
Right.
sunburns just randomly. You know, and it doesn't matter how long I spend. I was in the sun yesterday for 9 hours, and it's hard to get a tan now. Like the tan is like slowing
Oh,
down, which is
I
wild.
I
Yeah.
understand. So I am naturally what they call a ginger.
Oh,
I'm strawberry blonde. It's hard to kind of tell in videos, but very fair skinned. But as you can see, I'm more kind of gold than I am fair. I don't use sunscreen. I don't participate. I do wear sunglasses from time to time. And when I say from time to time, I think the last time I wore sunglasses outside was maybe like 6 weeks ago. It's usually if I'm in an environment that has an extremely high glare. So,
mhm.
like sometimes when I'm at the beach, we go in the morning, and in the morning, I don't need it at all. But if we've been there for 4 or 5 hours, the sand that we have here is not white, but it's very, very like fair beige kind of color. And right at the peak, right about, I would say about 11:30, 12 o'clock at the day, it it blinds you glaring off the thing. I'll put sunglasses on, but as far as 99% of my existence, I don't wear sunglasses anymore. Now, like about 5, 6 years ago, I wore sunglasses all the time. I lathered myself in sunscreen because why? I burned all the time. I burned if I thought about being in the sun. And when I started learning about circadian rhythm, it really started when my husband started taking me to the beach and forcing me to learn how to surf. I say forcing, I wanted to, but but getting me out surfing. And I remember I was like terrified. I'm like, what am I going to do being out in the water on a surfboard with the sun shining on me forever? I'm going to look like one of those kooks with like the hats and the like arms. And I started noticing that the longer we had done that, right, where we were out there every morning in the sun, the less sunscreen I needed. And I was like, oh, okay, I can go a little bit longer. And then of course I started educating myself about sunscreen, and holy hell,
oh
that's a
yeah,
whole
oh yeah.
whole other whole
Just
other
put it,
subject.
every single person, they have us all pinned. Everybody on this
Yeah.
planet is all snip, slop, slapping. And
Yeah.
it's like, holy, they got us again, you
They
know?
got us again. Exactly. Oh, there's another one.
Oh, yeah.
Um, so I stopped using sunscreen altogether, and I do make sure, whether it's cloudy outside or not, that if in the morning, if I can't catch the first sun, like right at sunrise, at least as soon as I can get outside, I'm outside, I'm looking at the sky, and I am
Mm.
making sure that I am participating in all of the glory that I am being gifted in that time. And like, as you can see, I don't burn. We went out this last Saturday. We went to my brother's, my nephew's birthday party. Haven't had any sunscreen on. It was full sun outside all day. So it's kind of like, I don't know, if I can do it and not get burned, there's something to it.
And there's a lot of people with the circadian rhythms that are, like sunset, sundown, like just the sleep cycle. And, if you're eating properly,
Yes.
these things start becoming a little bit more achievable. I mean, I suffered from
Yeah.
insomnia for years. I didn't even realize it was insomnia. Now that I kind of done some research, I was like, oh, that's me, as soon
Right.
as you hit the bed. And now, just looking at the sun, getting sun in your eyeballs, and I notice my glasses, if I'm staring at a screen, and I mean, I should be getting blue block glasses. I don't know why I haven't done it, and I've just thought of it now. But staring at a screen, my eyesight gets worse. If I'm out in the set in the daylight, I can read a book, and if I'm on a screen indoors, I can't read a book. And I there's no question. I think it ties into,
Oh,
general
yeah.
health.
Absolutely. Absolutely. My husband wears eyeglasses. He's had eyeglasses since he was, I think they started getting him eyeglasses when he was about 4 years old. And I told him recently, because he wanted to go in to get his eyes checked again, but not to get his eyes checked, but because you have to have a prescription to renew glasses. And he was like, my glasses are so scratched up. He's had the same ones for about 5 years now. And he's like, I know I don't need a higher prescription because, we've already started like focusing on some of this. And I'm like, what's the possibility that this could be corrected? Maybe not 100%, but even just
for sure
any amount. And he was like, I'm willing, but he definitely needed some new glasses. I mean, they almost look like they've been through a cat fight, but he goes in, and gosh, this is either way. He goes in, and this is the other perspective that I have of reality with, that sometimes doctors think that they have the right over your own choice. He goes in and he specifically asks and tells them, I do not want my prescription raised at all. I do not want it increased at all. I want it to stay exactly as it is. Do not change my prescription value. And they go, well, we have to do the exam. We have to go through the blah, blah, blah. And he sat there and he goes, I specifically made a notion that the whole time they were doing the little flipping an eye things, he was like, no change, no change. He said, I said, no change for everything. And she goes, oh, I noticed that there's a little bit of a muscle pull on your left eye. And he said, yeah, I had to have surgery on that eye as a child. He got hit really hard and his eye had turned in. So they did surgery and kind of got it pulled back. She goes, well, we know that because of that eye will be weaker. And he looked, he said, okay, but I do not want my prescription raised at all. He walks out of the doctor's office and he's looking at his prescription, and she did it anyways.
Crazy.
Even without him acknowledging like any change. So he didn't give any notion that there was any difference. And he repeated when he made the appointment, to the lady when he walked in for the appointment, to the doctor herself, no change. We had already researched before that he has every right to require the same prescription and to not have it altered. He can't require them to change it to something else, but he can require it to not be altered from what it is. And she did it anyways, against his will. He fortunately went back in because he caught it, and he said, I'm sorry, I have a discrepancy because I specifically requested and required nothing to be altered with my prescription. And she had to go in and change it back because by law, that's his right. But she did it anyways. And these are the understandings that people don't understand, that they have the right over their own body. And it kind of brought another point about, and led into it, and I'm sorry I sidetracked, but it kind of led
Good.
to another point of it's your job to understand what your rights are for yourself and to educate yourself about what you need. But in the same shot, back to the whole thing, he knows already that what he's starting to do, because he's a little bit on the behind train when it comes to he waits until I kind of do something sometimes with these life changes. And then he's like, oh, okay, all right, I'm on board. And I'll come do it with you now that I've seen what you're doing and it seems to be okay. So he's now like starting to kind of shift, and he's starting to pay attention to, you know, making sure he gets sunlight in his eyes every day and not wearing his sunglasses as much and going through all that. And so hopefully this time next year I can come back and be like, look, he's actually reduced his prescription.
Yeah. I have no doubt. You sound like you're pretty good at figuring stuff out, Selina. So I think he's in good hands. If he's following you, that's a good lead to follow for sure.
Yeah.
What are you eating these days? What's your typical day of
eating? Oh man, I have the most boring diet ever as far as trying to explain it to people. I'm like, okay, so every single morning, I start off, I definitely have 4 eggs minimum, sometimes 5. I have about a tablespoon of butter. I handle butter now, whereas in the beginning I did not handle butter so well. Because of the dysregulation with my thyroid, I did mostly a lot of ghee, and I would do lots of tallow, but now I seem to be okay with butters. I'll let you know in another year if that still is a happy factor for me. So then I do that. I usually have about 6 more ounces of steak at about that time. And for me, it's whatever happens to be on sale during that week. If it's sirloin or whatever, it's just whatever it is. About mid-afternoon for me, anywhere between 12 to 2 o'clock, I usually have my second meal, which is usually another steak. I have a little bit more butter. Don't kill me, but I am a coffee drinker.
I can say stuff now, Mark. I can say stuff now, Mark. I've been trying coffee for almost a month. It's been beautiful, but no, I miss it. I'm not gonna lie. I really.
Now, I will say I drink decaf coffee, so I don't drink caffeinated coffee. So that is a little bit of a like, I've got, but not much.
I'm still jealous. Don't get me wrong.
But yeah, I mean, that's pretty much every single day. Sometimes I change it up with some ground beef.
So you're on 2 meals a day, Selina. Are you finishing pretty much in the day with your meals, or are you having it pretty much close to bedtime?
Okay, this week has kind of thrown me off schedule a little bit. I've had more meals closer to the evening than I typically do. I usually don't eat. In the past, my hard line was 4 o'clock. I didn't eat after 4 o'clock no matter what. For the most part, I would stop eating by 2 o'clock. Now, to give reference, I typically wake up anywhere between 4 and 4:30 a.m. So by 2 o'clock, I've had a whole typical standard day for most people. Although I do continue, obviously, to be awake after 2 o'clock. I still keep going. And I'm usually in bed about 8:30-ish, depending. So when I say I end at 2 o'clock, I know a lot of people are like, oh my gosh, you only ate for how many hours? And I'm like, well, if I was OMAD, that'd be fine. But because I am 2 meals a day, it typically, if I get up at 4, I've usually eaten by about 4:30. And then I have my next meal somewhere between 12 and 2. And then I'm usually done.
And you pretty much riding on intuition about how much you eat, or is it, you're not counting anything, just...
No, I used to count pretty heavily, and not because I was counting calories, but I definitely had to calculate my protein and my fats in the beginning because I unconsciously for a long time had an eating disorder and I didn't realize that. So I didn't eat enough food. So it wasn't from a sense of, oh, how do I reduce myself. It was having to calculate in the beginning to really learn what enough was, because I didn't have satiety signals and I didn't have hunger signals. In fact, I remember the first day after I had done like 2 weeks of priming, I remember the first day that I actually felt my stomach growl. And I was like, oh God, that's what this is. Like, this is what hungry feels like. Because I had starved myself unconsciously and truly. It wasn't like a purposeful thing. It was just this, like, I'm too busy. I'm too busy. I can't stop right now. I'll just go ahead and have some coffee. Throw that coffee in there, right? I'll just go ahead and have some coffee. And by the time I would realize, I hadn't eaten all day long. And when you're on a proper diet, it's like, yeah, you can do OMAD and be healthy. But when you're not, and you're mostly living off of a carb-based function, you can't do that. You just, it's metabolically destroying everything in you. And so I'm very cautious about just being like so hardcore for people about, oh my gosh, you should never calculate anything.
Oh, no.
Because there is a portion for a transition for those of us that don't know what it feels like to be hungry, because we're so used to starving that you have to train yourself to eat enough. So I did have to calculate quite a bit in the beginning just to like really realize. I'm at the point now where I'm like, I know. And there are some days I eat 3 or 4 steaks that day. And then there's some days I'm pretty happy with my 4 eggs and, 8 ounces of steak, and I'm good. So I can listen to that a lot more than I could have, say, 6 months ago. But,
well, it's great that you're allowing the intuition in a general sense, and obviously making a plan and doing something to understand that is, everybody's got their own little things. And I mean, some people need to, because I in my opinion, I think most people are way under eating. When they're actually taking the nutrition out of what they're eating, they're way under eating. And then when you start nourishing your body, everything can change pretty fast. Some people.
Did you see that video I put up yesterday, Selina, of the woman? The meal plan she was eating when she was massively under eating. This was a nutrition coach, a PT, I think she was, and you could clearly see she was in so much pain because she was under eating.
Yeah.
And that was the one that I was sitting beside. Did you see that one?
I did, yeah. Where she was like eating, this is my special yogurt, and this is the oats that I do in the morning. And I sat there watching that going, where did you get food?
When I watched that video, I was thinking in my head, I haven't used calories in a long, long time, but I was like, she must be eating at less than 1,000 calories. She must be.
Oh, I'm sure.
Then there's no way she's getting enough protein right there.
No.
Not at all.
And she's destroying her hormones.
Absolutely. Before I was officially diagnosed in 2017, this is kind of part of my pre-story. I have always been a very curvaceous person, but I was never an obese or overweight person by any means. I was a ballerina for 19 years. I danced anywhere between 6 to 9 hours a day. I worked out constantly. I was never an overweight person. After I had my first son, it was about, I would say, about 2 years-ish after he was born, I gained about 70 pounds in a year out of nowhere. Could not figure out why. I wasn't eating hardly anything. As far as like, I wasn't going to McDonald's every day, and I didn't hardly drink like sodas, and I wasn't participating in the lifestyle that one would go, oh, this is why you gained 70 pounds. But the reality was, it didn't matter what I did. And the fact that I gained that weight so rapidly, I went to the doctors, and it was like, something's wrong. And the entire story I got was, well, you're just overweight. And if you lose the weight, these symptoms are going to go away. And I was getting symptoms where it was like I was getting dizzy spells all the time. And it got so bad to a point that every time I went into a supermarket or a department store, I would black out. My partner at the time, he would have to catch me, or I'd have to hold his arm. And I felt like a frail 80-year-old woman that couldn't walk by herself. And this is understanding lights. What I realized is every time I would go in these high fluorescent environments, I would suddenly just be like, woof, and I would go down. And fortunately, he was strong, because he would kind of have to like stabilize me until I would come back. And those kinds of symptoms are not conducive of just being overweight. But that's what all of the doctors, every doctor I saw for years, just told me. So if that's the reason, because my misunderstanding and putting full-hearted trust that these people have my ultimate best interest at heart, and I think that they do for the most part, they just are not educated enough to give you the right answers. Not because they're not educated. There's a difference between intelligence and education, and I teach that to my children all the time. Like, you can be educated and not intelligent.
Yeah.
Not to be rude.
And see, that's what's going on in the world at the moment, Selina, because everybody's just focusing on that particular problem.
Yeah, just eat less and move more. You're
Just
you know,
just like
Yeah.
you look at the current
you
trend
can
now.
do it.
The current trend at the moment is the sugar diet. Everybody's just saying, okay, listen, let's follow the sugar diet. You'll lose weight. You'll look amazing. Yes, you will. But
Mhm.
you're gonna,
And
You're gonna pay for it.
destroy.
You know what, Mark?
Pay for.
You just said a good point, because we were talking about cancer today, and all these people that are doing these sugar fasts, or diets, whatever it
is.
eating a shit ton of sugar. Be careful, because if there's anything brewing in your body, and you're unaware of it, and you're going to be doing this, they say 72 hours minimum. Well, I'll tell you what, do this for a month. We just everything grows with sugar, so be careful.
Everything.
Because
Everything.
and in this day and age with turbo cancers, because of things we can't mention on this show, all those interventions that they did medically, you don't know what's going on under the hood. Be very careful.
Yeah,
Yes.
Absolutely.
And Sean Baker just did a sugar diet with butter, and he lost 8 pounds in 3 days with butter. So he's giving it right back to them. He's like, yeah, well, and I don't want to. So
right?
It's pretty funny. Yeah.
I have to say, I did something similar. I did a butter fast for 2 weeks once, and I lost 13 pounds in those 2 weeks. And I've not gained those 13 pounds back once I started like refiltering back over to the full meat and protein aspect of it. And I don't necessarily think that that's best for everybody. I didn't know what I was doing at the time. I had no clue. I was just like, this just feels fine. This feels okay. And that's not the best way to do everything, but I can say, as far as my experience, it was like, well, I didn't drop in anything. I didn't have any kind of mood crashes. I wasn't going through an emotional like roller coaster. There was nothing about my physical being that didn't just stay like, oh, okay, everything's okay. I mentally handled everything fine.
Yeah.
On sugar, though, from my own experience, whenever I did eat sugar, it's like, oh, if I had sugar, especially if I did not have enough protein in my system at the same time, I would go through this emotional roller coaster like a crazy person. I mean, I would be like happy, fine. Oh my God, I got my sugars. Oh, great. Like, okay. And then, an hour later, I'm like, can you just leave me alone? Like, stop talking to me. Don't touch me. Like, I would go through such an overstimulation experience that it was like, I couldn't even be touched. That psychologically, something's wrong. Something is wrong affecting with the way your brain sends out signals for you to function. That alone, I don't think I'll ever try the sugar diet. Thanks, guys. You guys put on your own.
You know what? When it first started, I was like, oh, wait a minute. Come on, man. And then all this visions of my sugar addiction come horrible. Like, now I'm going to be sitting there eating McCain's cake, hammering back, peanut butter cups. Like, what? And it's just
I got triggered because there was a guy. So I was absolutely no questions. If you had caught me as a late teenager, early 20s-ish person, I was a Sour Patch Kid fanatic. I mean,
Oh, hey.
holy crap. The watermelon ones, oh, yeah, you couldn't have taken the bag away from me if I had.
Highly recommended by Mark Bell. You got to get those in.
Right? And when I saw this whole like nonsense start popping up on my social media stuff, and it triggered, there was a part of my brain when I saw it, I went, oh.
You know,
Yeah.
I almost think
I had the sovereignty within my body to be like, oh,
Yeah.
God, yeah, I don't want that. I don't want to do that to myself because I know what that does to myself.
Exactly.
And,
Yeah.
and I have a tough time since we had a little bit of we almost put on our tinfoil hats there at the beginning, but I think it might be a plant. This whole thing, like, are you kidding me? What are we all doing this now? Like, what the hell is going on?
Yeah.
You know, are we taking everything that we've been sort of, going towards? And I think they've chipped away at some of the animal based, and I know Paul Saladino has this thing. He has his reasons, whatever you can agree or disagree. I mean, I'm not personally, that's not for me. I
Me
don't
neither.
agree with it. I don't think it ever would have been ancestrally, seasonally, maybe, but I think these could be planets. Like, it's crazy how nuts this has gone. And I mean, I had to do a warning to all the people I'm helping and my clients. I'm like, do not just think this is good. Like,
Yeah.
everybody's in serious metabolic health or serious metabolic problems. And it's like, now you're giving them that, it's like the next Ozempic, right? Who knew it was going
Right.
to be Jolly Ranchers? Shit.
That part alone is, I guess this is where I say, having your own ability to be able to logically think through something without just accepting what you're being told. One of the things that I find, because I experienced this all through 2020, is the people that I knew that were more than willing to hop on that train. And I know this is a cautionary conversation, but they usually were on some of the worst food lifestyles that I knew of. But those of us that had already started at that point, pulling out of, I'm not eating all this processed stuff, and I don't think seed oils are really good for me, and gosh, sugar, we need to go ahead and nix that out of the system. I don't know that I have met a person who had done that before or during that experience that opted to hop on those trains. And it's because I'm sure that the ability to have the logical thought process, to be able to sit back and observe a scenario or a situation, and it doesn't have to be that one, it can be anything. It could be, how to assemble a kid's toy, for Christ's sake. But the ability to actually just process logical thinking skills is more prevalent, I've noticed, in those of us that choose not to participate with sugars and high process.
You're
Let alone
absolutely
carnivore or not. Just those two things to start off with.
spot on. I absolutely agree with you because, for myself, the gift that I didn't ever figure it would give me was my ability to think. And just the discernment factor alone, like,
Yeah.
it's unbelievable. And just stepping outside, taking a look at everything, and we, the things that won't be named, we talk about that. And I did, like, whether you want to call it was the divine intervention, but I was learning about viruses, I was learning about immune systems, and I was like taking these lectures and courses and workshops about the immune system. That's when I came across vitamin D and actually learned about how it all functions. And then before all the interventions came out, I looked at this presentation of what it does. And I could, if you took vitamin D to the cellular level, that's what it does. And I'm like, this is not a good idea. Holy cow. Like,
Exactly.
and it was like unbelievable to see this natural pathway and about how important it is for your immune system. And then you see this, and I'm positive if I wasn't able to, you know, discern and
cognitively decipher
yeah,
the
and see that, and it was like holy cow, and people were, you know, they're just lining up, and no one wants to know what's going on. Oh,
No.
what would you know?
I know.
Okay, all right.
The thing-
Unlike everybody else, I was scared shitless for a year and a half too. Okay, and
right,
that's what
exactly.
sparked me to learn.
The thing that really blew the top off for me on that whole like thing, my mom's house had gotten completely destroyed during Hurricane Florence here in North Carolina. And like we're cleaning up the debris, and we're like literally shoveling marsh mud like out of what like barely was left. I mean, the entire foundation was wiped away. There were like 2/3 of the house was completely demolished. And I'm sitting there, and my mom does not use like harsh chemicals on anything, like cleaning wise, and she has been that way for almost all of my life. But one of the things, she's also a licensed esthetician. Her and I both went to school at the same time. We both graduated. It's been like 23 years now since we've had our licensing for that. Fun thing, fortunate to have that blessing to do with her that I did with her. But one of the requirements for the state exam is you have to have Lysol with you as a cleaning implement to wipe down your like your chair and, you know, any kind of like hand touchy things that people like might put their hand on. Not your tools per se, but just like what they're going to lay on. You have to wipe it down with Lysol in order to take the exam. And
I found you.
yes, you found me. Sorry, guys.
Looking for you.
You were looking for me?
Uh-huh.
Okay. Yes. You are messy. So, she had this can of Lysol that had been in the garage. I think she had had this can.
Me.
I think she had had this can for over like 10 years. Okay. August, what did I tell you? No. I know. That's disappointing. Okay. I know. You want to be in so badly. She had this can of Lysol for like over 10 years. Now, mind you, the hurricane happened in 2018. We're cleaning up in 2018. This is before the event, right? And I remember cleaning up, and I remember reading the bottle and seeing what was on it, and I was like, God, this stuff's so weird. Like this is some harsh stuff. And what was interesting is we did not throw it out. We set it back on a shelf, which ended up back in the garage and sat there for like the next couple of years. I went out into the garage during the event. I went out to the garage to help get her something, and we were cleaning everything out of the garage and like reorganizing and stuff. The house had already been like rebuilt at that point in time. And I'm like carrying this crate that has like Lysol and like paint thinners and just a random mix of chemical things. And I'm like, Mom, do you really need all this? Most of the stuff is probably bad by now as far as talking about the paints and the thinners and stuff. And I'm sorry.
Ah, it's all good.
Yeah.
Life. I love it.
Okay. No. Please do not push on that. Okay. Do not push. You can sit there. And I'm like, we probably need to go ahead and get this out. And I'm like, and you've had this bottle of Lysol for like half my life. Like, it's time to get it out. And I happened to look back at it again, and I'm reading it, and I saw that it said kills the coronavirus.
No way.
Mm-hmm. And I'm
wow.
And I'm sitting there, and that was the thing that like popped the lid off for me. August, if you cannot listen, you will have to go back in the house. Thank you. That popped the lid off for me of going, this isn't something new.
No, yeah. No kidding.
This has been on a can that existed back in like 2005.
Everybody put on the tinfoil hat right now, because that's right.
Wow.
Like
Crazy.
Spoiler alert.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that was what set me into the questioning what was happening and what was being given to us, and the ideologies of, well, if this has been around, that means we've already been fighting this off with our own antibodies.
Absolutely.
And why am I now needing this other object to help me get through this? It just didn't make sense to me.
Yeah, no doubt. And it's funny how they use that tagline, novel, right? Because it's the strain that's novel, but it's not the root. It's been around. It's been
And I've already been a weirdo when it comes to things like that anyways, because I don't take flu vaccines and stuff like that. And because my whole concept was, if they're having to create a new one every year, what's the point? What's the point?
Well, we know what the point is, but
yes, I know.
But it's not to protect you against the flu, right?
Yeah,
like that's not the idea. As many times as possible in your arm. Cha-ching, right? Oh man. Well, Selina, we want to let you be a mom, and we don't want to take up too much more of your time, because we're getting on. I've thoroughly enjoyed this conversation. Thank you very much for being here. We'd love to have you back on and do it, and maybe even come and co-host on a Sunday, because I think you got the chops and just
And
I really and what an amazing story, and courage and bravery, and you're so inspiring, and I think people should be hearing your story. And where can they find you? How do people get a hold of you?
So I'm on Instagram at Primal Fox Health. You can find me there all day.
All right. And I will make sure I'll get some information from you too, and we'll post the stuff in the description when we do this. And Mark, any last comments? Anything to say? Anything?
No, thanks very much for Selina for coming on. I've heard your story. I've heard your story a few times, but it's an amazing story. I love hearing it.
And I think we could all probably agree that there's hope, and if there's empowering, and I know it might be a big leap of faith, but taking the power back and empowering yourself to be as healthy as you can now.
Exactly. I think that's one of my things that I try to stress to people is, I can't tell you or guarantee you that it'll reverse whatever it is, but what I can tell you is changing to this lifestyle without question will give you a vitality that is much better than anything you're experiencing at the moment. And
well said.
Very well said. Okay, guys. Well, we are live every Sunday, 10 p.m. Pacific, 6 p.m. in the UK and Ireland, 7 p.m. in the Netherlands and continental Europe. Thanks to Selina. Mark, always a pleasure. And we will be see you very soon.
Thanks very much. See you soon, guys.